Hello, everybody, and you are very welcome to our relatively new concept, and that is Successful Perspectives by EMIR. This is where we deep dive into specific topics with members of our network, thought leaders, CEOs of big organizations, and we try dig into the philosophy behind some of their businesses and what has shaped their careers themselves as well. So with this in mind, I'm delighted to be joined by a friend of mine, Walter Jopp, who is the CEO of Zurich International here in the Middle East. Walter, it is wonderful to see you. I haven't seen you in quite a while, which many people would say is a benefit of the pandemic, that they don't actually have to look at me. But still, it is great to see you, and you're very welcome to Successful Perspectives.
Thank you, Trevor. It's great to see you too.
Thinking back, given that here we are in the beginning of 2021, thinking back to last year, what were some of the insights that you took away from 2020? How has it shaped you? What are some of the learnings from a business perspective? And how will you take some of them moving forward? Give me a sense of, as a CEO, what 2020 has done for you in terms of that important part of learning and improving and taking something away from what has been a pretty terrible situation in terms of the global pandemic?
I think I have to say, we've heard it all before. It's been an unprecedented year. It's been so challenging and all those things. I think in my 27 years of working in the industry, this is the first time that we've had to deal with something quite of this scale. You know, we work for an insurance company. We prepare for the events that are essentially are not supposed to happen. And actually, what we all had to live through, and all our staff and our colleagues, our customers, it was really something that you can never fully prepare for. And I think one of the greatest things that we've learned is just people's ability to be able to get things done under pressure. And when it was required, essentially we have 300 staff. All of them had to work from home. Our IT department, whilst that we prepare for business continuity and all those things, Trevor, we never fully envisaged a situation where we would be, for the long term, having to serve 300,000 customers in this region, all people working from home, all the IT, all the data security, all those things. And actually, I'm so pleased, and a big thank you to all our staff and everybody that we work with, to say, you know, we pulled it off. And actually, I think it's changed our perspective. I do not believe that as a business, we will ever get back to 100% working from the office. I think people now expect some flexibility, a better work-life balance. And actually, customers are also saying to us, you know, we want different ways of dealing with you. So we've learned a lot about digitizing our processes, about the need to be there for our customers when they need us most. So investing in frontline technology so that we can actually serve our customers better 24/7 in a format that they see fit, either by email, by telephone, by completely digital. And all of those things have really, I wouldn't say change our perspective, but accelerated our strategy and essentially forced us to think differently.
Well, it's on that point of being forced, right? Necessity is the mother of invention. I think Plato said it, I'm not sure, but it's so true. It's the same here at EMIR. You know, obviously we host physical events. You don't need a great deal of insight to figure out that when there's a pandemic and lockdown takes place, those of you putting on physical events, we had some sleepless nights. But very quickly, in what would have normally taken us maybe a year or maybe even 2 years, within the space of about 5 or 6 weeks, we had just shifted everything to virtual. And we'd gone from, you know, having 150 or 200 people in a room to having 1,000 people registered for events. So it's this dramatic change in everything. Now, on that point of being, you know, we were forced, you were forced, we were all forced with these changes. What do you think surprised you the most in terms of how you were able to manage, well, not so much how you were able to manage this process, but what surprised you in terms of your business philosophy? Perhaps how you had looked at business a certain way pre-COVID, and now as we move into 2021, some of these insights will shape your business philosophy moving forward?
I think one of the best things that's come out of 2020 is our ability to think differently, to be agile in the way that we make decisions. Normally, as an insurance company, we're relatively slow, we're very secure, we want everything 100% before, and actually we didn't have that luxury. And actually we put people in teams and on projects, and they got things done very, very well, and it worked really well. And I think that agile methodology, that ability, that need to get stuff done, that mind process to say, look, we have no other choice, let's get things done. I think for me, that's been one of the greatest learning that's come out of 2020. I think, can you replicate this in a normal year, Trevor? That's the question that is yet to be seen, right? Can you maintain this momentum? Can you maintain this work ethic? Can you maintain this sense of urgency over the long term? I don't know. But I think one of the things that we have learned is we have to do things differently. And when we do things differently, people step up. Our people are empowered. We trust them, and they have delivered. They've come through. And I think for us, that's been the single biggest win that we've got from 2020. And we're in a better place in 2021, even though the pandemic is still going on, even though we're still dealing with lockdown issues. We are in a far better place, and we can now sustain this for the longer term, which is great.
And I suppose this is the interesting thing, right, about being a CEO. You mentioned there 27 years with your career, right? Now, obviously you started as a very, very young boy, I assume, right? 27 years. But no, in all seriousness, when you think about it, you're still learning because of these new events that always happen, right? And you're still being shaped, and your philosophy is being shaped. When you think over those 27 years, what have been some of the central tenets that you believe have helped you to be successful in terms of your business philosophy?
I think it's believing in people. I think trusting, empowering, and getting people to work together. I think, having integrity, working well in groups, having a clear focus, all those things have really helped. I don't think you can ever prepare for a year like we had last year, because nobody thought that the whole world would go into the state of lockdown that it really went into. Business continuity for us was what happens if our offices go on fire, or we can't no longer work for them. Well, we'll just go and move everybody to Abu Dhabi or to Sharjah or to somewhere else. That's how we plan to deal with it. So I think, it's forcing you to think differently, but I think staying to your strategy, understanding what it is you're trying to do, where your business adds value, how it's going to service its customers. I think that, if you have that clear, then regardless of what's going on in the world, I think you can adapt yourself to meet those goals and to that end.
You mentioned some interesting points there around, believing in people, integrity, and this is, shaped you over the years to get you to this position to deal with a year like 2020. Just out of curiosity, when you think back through your career, what has been some of the best advice that you've actually received?
Don't be afraid to fail. Make a decision. Go for it. Get out of your comfort zone. And I think we've all lived through that over these past 12 months. And I think, but that's how you learn, Trevor. In my experience, being put in those difficult situations, those things where you have to think differently, where normal rules no longer apply, I think that's where you do your greatest learning. And you really have to think carefully about what is our strategy, what is it that we're here to do, what do we want to do for our customers, for our shareholders, for our employees. And when you have that clarity, things become, I wouldn't say easier, but the path becomes easier. You know where you're heading, you know where your North Star is. And I think, and if you make the wrong decision, I've always been told, just make another one. At least make the decision. Waiting and not making a decision, you'll be left behind. And I think that's been one of the greatest pieces of advice that I've ever received.
And do you feel, because, people who are younger, who are perhaps earlier in their career with less experience, they'll hear that piece of advice and they may feel that the luxury of being able to make a decision comes with experience. you know, in the sense of having that confidence to make that decision. Where is that balance between experience and decisiveness, and how do you, you know, at what point do you feel that you really, you know, that the decisions you're making and you feel confident around the decisions you're making, and the people around you, of course, play an important part in that. But how have you managed that process of being able to understand the balance between having the right experience and making the decision relative to making decisions that are primarily just driven on instinct?
And I think, you know, there is no substitute for experience. So as senior managers, our roles are to support those people, to make them feel comfortable in the decisions that they're making, so that they can essentially, you know, we can provide a secure environment into which they're making decisions. We let them know where the parameters are and the level of responsibility and accountability, and then we support them through that. But I think all of us have to, at some moment in our careers, have to make decisions that maybe stretch us, maybe it takes us to the limit of our capabilities. And I think you shouldn't be afraid of that. You should not be afraid of you know, doing things that are outside of your comfort zone is for me, that's what really builds, and that's what really allows somebody to grow into new areas. You never know how much you can do until you test yourself.
Yeah, very true. On the point, you know, you're in, of course, in the industry of insurance. An important part around insurance is a risk and pricing risk and uncertainty. When you look into 2021 and, you know, the year ahead, how do you think leaders can prepare themselves to deal with a future of uncertainty?
I think uncertainties, it's all part of the future. I think there's an element of uncertainty linked to the pandemic, and that is going to continue. Obviously, there are green shoots of hope with vaccinations, with countries locking down. We're better able to understand the scope of what we're dealing with. I think that understanding and that learning is actually allowing us to build plans that are more realistic in the current environment. But we have to work out, as business owners and leaders, how do we adjust our business for the long term in a way that allows us to deal with these longer periods of uncertainty. So for us now, learning from 2020, our plan for 2021 is more robust. Yes, you're right. We're in the business of dealing with risk and managing risk and how we do that. And we tend to be risk averse in the way, but we're also looking for growth. Our group looks to the Middle East as an area of growth, of potential, and we believe strongly that actually the way that the government has actually dealt with the situation and the stimulus and the way that it's protected the people and businesses is actually very reassuring. And for us, we're fully committed to the Middle East, and we see great potential in the medium to long term. And I think, you know, that's what drives us. And I think, you know, as we head into the second part of 2021, I think we will start seeing some good growth coming back.
Yeah, and just as an industry, I'm just curious there, you're talking about uncertainty. As an industry, the insurance industry was going through quite a bit of disruption before COVID, and from a technological perspective, how do you see COVID changing that, if at all, or how do you see that panning out in 2021, but also further down the road as well?
I think the insurance industry as a whole has been slow to adapt itself and change itself to the new world. We're no longer, you know, competing against other insurance companies. We're competing against the Amazons of this world and the Ubers and the Googles, and that's where our future lies. We also need to understand our position and what do we do in society, and we need to change from solely focusing on making a profit to doing good for society and for countries and for people over the long term. So there's an important role that insurance companies play in terms of securing projects or countries or people or whatever it is, and providing that security leads to stability. And when you have that stability, you can take a bit more risk and you can afford to grow and develop your market or whatever it is further. So I think we have a role to play. I think the insurance industry, like I said earlier, has been slow to adapt. We're now as Zurich moving forward very, very rapidly in terms of our digitization and the type of products and services that we want to offer, Trevor. So I think all of that creates opportunity. I think in the Middle East, the insurance industry in the Middle East has a long way to go. There's an awful lot of insurers. There will be some consolidation. They will have to adapt and change. And I think that's all part of working in emerging markets.
Has COVID accelerated or exacerbated the need to consolidate, do you feel?
I think that COVID, what it has done is actually tested the resilience of businesses. And so therefore, unless you were financially strong and you had the right infrastructure and you had the right foundations in place, I think it's exposed some of that. And I think it has weakened some of the insurers and some of the people in the insurance industry and some businesses in the insurance industry.
Walter, I'm afraid that's all the time we have for, but I'd just like to thank you so much for your participation. I will see you in the physical world soon. I look forward to seeing you. And thank you so much for your time. And thank you very much for sharing your insights with us today.